Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Honored to be here. I was a combination of a couple of things. First was just I've been making like little Super 8 shorts since I was a kid. It kind of came naturally. And second, from a purely technical perspective, when I first got to New York, I was living in a squat out in Williamsburg, and I was making my money by painting condos. We were Terminator painters, reprogrammed to paint because this was back in the 80s. I met a guy named Caleb Oglesby who was opening up a post-production facility called Videogenics, and I was painting his place, and it was mostly a editing house. It was something I'd always been fascinated by, and I was like, mind if I give it a shot? And I just took to it like a fish out of water. And then the second thing that really inspired me to start making my own films was really two films: Jean-Luc Godard's Alphaville and Darren Aronofsky's Pi. Two black and white films that were just blew me away, just sucked me right in, and made me say, I can do that. And based on that, I wrote a script called The Utopia Virus, which I entered in the Big Break Final Draft Film Competition. And that scored in the top 10 in the country. And, they flew me out to LA, and there was a nice little celebration. And from that, I got an agent. That was a hell of a ride for a few months. But the only thing I really learned there is that I don't want to write for Hollywood. I hated it. I hated every second of it. Not every second of it. Spent like 3 or 4 months rewriting the script with Charles Stone. I guess most people know him from Drumline. So we worked on that for a few months, and then something huge came along, another film, and he moved on. It's a typical Hollywood story. I just kind of stopped writing screenplays and started making my own documentaries. That was also kind of a little bit hit and miss, because I started making documentaries with friends, ignoring one of the best pieces of documentary advice I had ever gotten from a mentor of mine, St. Clair Bourne. I cut his film, John Henry Clark, A Great and Mighty Walk. He said to me, never make a documentary about somebody who is still alive. I didn't really pay much attention, and I made a couple documentaries with friends. It wrecks the friendship. All of a sudden, they're working for you, or you're stealing their story, or, it's 2 out of 3 friendships have been wrecked by making a documentary about friends. And so I just don't do it anymore. I plan on going pro at this point, basically. No more one-man band. I've got proposals, realistic proposals with budgets attached, and I'm looking for producers, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be very different from here on out. I hope. Did that answer the question? Yes, that was my only film that was in theaters, has been in theaters, and it was, I believe, the only Jay-Z documentary to make money. And it was a chronicle of Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life tour back in 1999. And I, unfortunately, was not on the tour with Jay and crew. Jay's partner at the time, Damon Dash, came to me with a Nike sneaker box full of tapes. It had like 96, 97. They were the little tape. They just left me in a edit room for 6 months and let me cut. That was a lot of fun. Yes, that won the Grand Jury Award at the 2016 LA Film Invasion. Favorite, I guess my favorite film is the one I'm working on now. That would be Broadway Swan, the film I'm currently finishing up with Carlos Pinto and Johnny Sear, about their commission by the National Audubon Society to create a mosaic on 163rd and Broadway, the first mosaic commissioned by the National Audubon Society, that I shot over 3 years, first up in Andes at Ken Hiratsuka's Squid Farm, then in Brooklyn at Oye Studios, and then again up at 163rd Street and Broadway, where they were installing, I think, what was it, it was either 2020 or 2021. I know it wasn't that long ago, sorry, but it was just as the pandemic was kind of winding down and people were just starting to emerge. And one of the reasons I love that film so much is I feel like I really caught that moment, caught that magic in like fireflies in a jar, that time when people were just so happy to be doing something, to be seeing anything, and to be out. And there's a whole section of that film towards the end where you have the people on the street walking up and putting their own pieces of tile into the mosaic, so it really becomes an expression of the whole neighborhood. I mean, I'm getting kind of choked up just thinking about it now, because it was just such it was really oh God, I hate that word, but it was really magical. It was really like, oh wow, I finally caught something valuable and real with my camera, you know. And that is in post-production now. I've got a fine cut. I've got another shoot that I want to do up, and then I've just got to figure out how to mix it and get it out into the world. I've only entered it in 2 or 3 festivals at this point. Bushwick Film Festival and American Documentary Festival in New York. And if I don't get it, I'll just rent someplace and have a big party and a big screening. I hate marketing. I'm not enough into money to be a filmmaker, really, because filmmaking is all about chasing the money all the time. That's why I need a real producer. And yeah, that I can't wait to get that out. It feels really good. So I'm really excited for that to come out. And that should be this year. I can't be filmmaking all the time, you know. Sort of that visual hunger to create imagery and just sort of produce stuff. I guess just neurotic, or I don't know. But the first set of images on my Artsee page are the deconstructive photography. And the thing I love about that, and it kills me because I did most of it back in 1987. It's like one of those things where you do something in your 20s and, you know, oh, and now I'm in my 60s, and it comes all the way around, and I look at it and I see all these new things in it. And so I dive right back into it. And it feels almost cyclical at this point, but my skills have advanced to the point in Photoshop, the ease of use of Photoshop, it's that curve is hitting the right spot. So now I can retouch these images like I never could before, because when you cut a piece of paper out of a notebook or a book of images, it leaves that white mark where the paper is. And it gets really ugly and busy and intrusive. So I just kill that stuff. And it was just such a pleasure to be able to retouch. And finally, after 1987, my math sucks, so I'm not going to even try. But after all these years, just to finally see on paper what I had been carrying around all this time. So I've been taking pictures of flowers and doing the flower work and integrating different things in with the flowers, because I just feel flowers are kind of a decorative blank dead end, and I'm bored as fuck with them anyway. So I've kind of abandoned that a little bit, just in terms of the image making. And yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, AI. It's so addictive, so addictive. Because you write your stuff down and then you hit render, you know, and it's like a slot machine. Am I going to get my image? Am I going to be impressed or not impressed or whatever? But I had a great time using it last night to create illustrations for my next documentary, which I'm putting the proposal together for now. And working I'm putting it together for Joel, the founder of Artists for Peace. Just such a sweet, sweet man, and so generous with his time. He gave me, we worked out a deadline, and I am determined to have this proposal in tip-top shape for when we meet, and just talk further about it and explore further possibilities in terms of funding and ideas and whatnot. Well, what I described those particular flower images, is neoclassical psychedelia, because people have been painting flowers for as long as they've been painting, and so I consider flowers almost pure classicism. I mean, even contemporary photographers like Mapplethorpe, it's really a classic composition. And my intention is just sort of take that classicism and modernize it by making it a little psychedelic, a little, so that you're not really sure what you're looking at. You're grounded in the image of a flower, but it's been distorted and messed with to the extent that it occupies its own space as a flower. It's the only way that, it's kind of satisfying. I mean, I could be posting I got so many flower images. Like I could post like a lot of straightforward, very classical, pretty flower images. That's not going to happen. And then the last art set on the page is the pair of pictures, the pops. For me, it's reducing collage to its most basic, primitive form, the diptych. And that's all based on, again, another favorite science fiction movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey, where after the one ape gets finished beating another ape to death, he throws the bone into the air and it just cuts to a orbital weapons platform. And what Kubrick does is he just compresses millions of years into evolution into that one cut. And that's one of the most famous edits in cinema history. And it really had a very strong effect on me as an editor. Again, editing is one of those things that it can be very easy and superficial, but it's also got so much depth. And there's so many things about the craft to explore and really create better narratives with. And that's a lot of what I'm concerned with. And those are great because the narratives don't have to be traditional. They don't have to say anything. And they could be jokes. They could be a little joke. It could be something more profound, or it could be, pointing out something societal, or just like a little visual moment that sort of may evoke something in your head. And the whole point of those is not to look at these two images. The whole point of those is, even though I am appropriating imagery for those, it's not the images per se that is the focus of the work, but it's what happens when those two images are put together and cause a reaction in your mind as you try to figure out why the hell those two images are next to each other. And, it's like with everything else, sometimes it's successful, sometimes not so much. I used to show way back in the 80s, early 90s. I was showing on 11th Street in Manhattan at the KOAP Gallery. And that was run by a Japanese guy who moved back to Japan. And then not really a lot, because again, I'm not a careerist. So I'm always creating and not selling. And, I've learned I've learned the error of my ways. And, I'm going to do a lot more marketing, et cetera. And then during the pandemic, one of the artists that I'm working on with the Broadway and Swan film, Juan Carlos Pinto, hooked me up with New York City Arts Empire. And I had a ton of shows with them. And that, again, was another product, another really positive, and I know this is difficult, another really positive aspect of the pandemic for me. Because it was another time that, again, as the pandemic was loosening up, there were tons of empty spaces all over the city. And this Elaine opened up a gallery down on Lower Broadway and invited a ton of artists to produce work. And at that time, again, people were so happy to be out and engage and have something to see that, we would open up shows with 10, 15 different quote unquote street art artists. And I don't know how I fell in with the street art. Carlos dragged me down with the street artists. And we would have a line down the block. We would literally have thousands of people. The place was so packed, you couldn't move. And it just felt spectacular. But, I didn't last long there because I'm not a street artist. And I tried to be a little bit, and my work kind of felt a little fake. So I just kind of pulled back from that whole situation. And lately, there's not much. I've been a couple conversations with Bishop Gallery, and yeah, that's about it for the moment. But again, I don't push either the art or the film hard enough. I'm a creator, not a seller. And again, that's probably a problem that so many of us have. And I'm working on trying to fix it. I just haven't really found the solution yet, Lately, I feel like it's almost a dirty secret because I've been working with generative AI, and I tend to agree with the rest of the world that AI is, I'm not going to say, evil or anything like that, but the companies that steal the work of millions of writers and artists and throughout history and all over the world, I think they should really be held accountable. Human beings should not be treated as a commodity. The work of artists and authors should not be stolen and used to train these artificial intelligence unless there's a big pot in which, these artists can get paid. Hopefully that will be happening once, and it's horrible to say this, but once like the real white collar people with voices and power start to get ripped off and their jobs start to disappear, doctors, lawyers, Wall Street analysts. And I think once that happens and these more powerful people are challenged, I mean, the artists are challenged, but the artists, we don't have any power. We can make a lot of noise. We can make great campaigns and viral videos and stuff like that, but we don't have the power to take on these monster corporations like OpenAI and Google. But lawyers do. Doctors have plenty of money. Like, it's not just the little people that are in threat of losing their jobs. So that how that all plays out is going to be very interesting. That's all just a caveat to say that, yeah, I've been using AI too, but with the awareness that it's not coming from a good place and it's not in a good place at this point. So I've written a ton of stories, and what I have found invaluable with, I would say at this point, especially Midjourney, is the ability to visualize characters from the stories, little sections from the stories. And now I've got two little short fiction films that I'm creating the imagery for with Midjourney. And as stuff gets better, like Runway 2 now, it still looks super ginchy, but as the animation software improves, I'm going to be animating these little things to see if I can kind of create bits and pieces of stories that I've written in the past. And that feels really interesting. I've kind of stopped making still images, the flowers and the anti-collage, the deconstructive photography, while all of that other stuff. Either make another short film or do some art instead of, chasing a career, which at my advanced age, I'm realizing was probably not, the best path, but I'm happy, everything's working. So hopefully my Artsee page will blow up, galleries will see it, filmmakers, producers will see it, and everything will change. Who knows? But I'm, again, so honored and so happy to have the opportunity to have created that page and to see for the first time all of my films and my artwork all together on one page. Just, for me, it's intoxicating just because I've never seen them together. It's always been separate endeavors. You screen your film in a theater or send a link to somebody and you see your art in a gallery. So I've never really combined them in this way. And I really have to commend you for the ease of use and the way it all just falls together so easily. Really, I don't want to kiss your ass too much, but I was shocked at how well it all came together and how great it all looks with such a limited set of instructions that you provided. It was just like the concision and the thought that you put into it just really shone through. It's kind of genius. I had my doubts until I actually did it, and then I was just in love. It just flowed so beautifully. I can leave it at that. Thank you.